Over here now, quickly.
Sure. Hi, my name is Ezekiel. I want to thank you both for your scholarship. My question is directed to Dr. Sherman. You alluded a little bit to the idea of the theist who would say that in naming God as the uncaused cause or the unmoved mover, why would we have to stop at that God and not someone else's God? I think for the Christian or for the believer or the theist, they use both faith and reason to arrive at their answer for the existence of God. Would a skeptic on this side over here who just uses reason, would their morality begin once they stop that infinite regress of naming a God or a non-God?
Ooh, you threw in morality with, I was following your, all the way till that part. I don't see how that fits. So I'll try to answer the first part. That is, okay, you do have to stop the causal chain somewhere, I suppose, but I'm not sure why. At some point, we can conceive of, say, infinity. Like, are there more even numbers or total whole numbers? If infinity is real, yes. The number of even numbers is just as many as the number of whole numbers. That can't be. So at some point we hit some sort of weird cognitive linguistic problem. If the universe is determined, how can we have free will? No one's ever really resolved this. What was there before there was time? Nothing. That's like asking what's north of the North Pole. Nothing. The South Pole, whatever. You can't even really ask it. So for some reason, this is called a Mysterian problem. That is, we can conceive of the problem but can't really answer it because of linguistic restriction. So why can't the universe have just been that which does not need to be created, or it creates itself? It's just a way of saying something like God is that which does not need to be created. Neither one is really an answer. At some point, we just hit the wall, and the best way to resolve these kinds of ultimate questions is over adult beverages late at night. Anyway.
Let me zoom in on the part of the question which focuses on different religions, because I would argue that you don't actually need for this moment to leap into some sort of revelation. I would say this: as human beings, we are aware that we live at this level, you might say the level of reality, but we aspire to, we long for, if you will, a certain kind of perfection, the perfection of beauty, or the perfection of justice, the perfection of truth. So you may say, here's the human level, and this is, let's posit, the divine level, the level of perfection. Now, I would say all the religions of the world, for the most part, are essentially human efforts to close this gap between man and the divine. If you look, for example, at Judaism and Islam, they in a sense erect a ladder which essentially is defined by codes and diets and rules. If you do these things, if you eat kosher, if you go to Mecca, if you pray 5 times a day, this is going to get you up the rungs of the ladder, and perhaps you will reach the required level. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the enemy is the self. If you can somehow extinguish the self, then you might experience nirvana. In Christianity, I think, is the only religion in the world that looks at this huge chasm between the human and the divine and says, in effect, it is unbridgeable by man. No matter how tall a ladder you build, you're not going to get up there. So something rather unusual has to happen in some bizarre way. The only way to close the gap is for God to come down and close that gap himself. And so the incarnation, or Christ, is, from a purely rational point of view, a way of seeing a sort of divine reaching down or condescension to the human level to close this gap that in all our hearts we long to be closed. So this is a way of, you might say, within the realm of discussion, reason, sociology, anthropology, adjudicating the competing claims of different religions. We don't have to go into any kind of hocus pocus. We can just look at it and say, what makes sense?